Hey, good evening, guys. We're back for the meteorology lab, and let me bring down the levels here. I was going into the red there. Okay. Neat time lapse. I finally got off my camera back there. I had some trouble getting that off my Android. Had to dig around, but had you saw that good shelf cloud come in yesterday, and a little bit of a downburst roll through. And that's given way to some fairly nice weather. Let me show you the surveillance camera here. And that's a look outside right now. So let's look at the big picture here. We'll go to digital atmosphere for that. And let me plot up the highways. That's always a good thing to have on here, so you can kind of pick out exactly where everything is. And this is the current plot of conditions. So you can see we're under southerly flow across much of the southern plains here. So we don't have the the better moisture up here just yet. 60s dew point isodrosotherm runs about like runs about like this, from about Houston up to the Stephenville area, south of Abilene and down to Junction. And you can see within that 60 area, clear skies. There's the 65 there coming up on San Antonio, but even there, conditions are clear. So we're very early in the return phase of the moisture. But we do have the dry line setting up. Absolutely, it's definitely there. There's the location. You can see we go from this 102 over 24 with a strong downslope flow and meeting up with these 63, 61 dew points. And that kind of, let's see, where would I go with the, yeah, I would pretty much bring the dry line down directly south through the Abilene Sweetwater area like that. Further up north, though, do have a little bit more dynamic weather going on. And we can see what looks like maybe either a front or an outflow boundary. So kind of set up like that right there. Looks like maybe the center of the meso high somewhere in this area right here. And ahead of that, we've got some areas of thunderstorms in that region. And let me bring up GR level 2, and we'll take a look at the picture there. There we go, a few cells out there east of Colby. And let's see, we're sampling this at about 9,500 feet. And it does look a little bit disorganized at this time. So you can see the echoes in here are not showing very strong reflectivity gradients. The tail end storm looking a little bit better there near Wakini. But movement on that looks like it's directly east. And let's check out some of the speeds, the velocities within the storm. You can see we're mostly in the 15 knot range. Nothing really standing out here at all. Looks like maybe no, nothing. No, these storms are just not really doing very much. I'm looking at this little area here, for example, zooming way in on that. And I see maybe a little bit of a weak meso right there. Let me put a dot there. But all I'm getting is maybe 15 knots of shear on that. But anyway, it's still pretty early, and we've got tomorrow coming up, and maybe some severe weather coming up then, and also for Saturday. Okay, let me bring up the chart sequence here. Here's the SPC Mesoanalysis showing low pressure developing in southeastern Colorado there. So we do have the gradient setting up off the Gulf Coast. We're bringing up the moisture there. And let's see if the low-level jet is in place. Normally that is a nocturnal feature there, but at this time I do see some 30-knot winds pretty much setting up from Austin through Fort Worth and up to Oklahoma City. So this should strengthen gradually overnight. You can see the dry line right in this area here. And we will see that dry line kind of recede westward overnight, and should find it around the Caprock area, maybe out towards the Amarillo, Lubbock area by tomorrow morning. Yeah, let's check out what the instabilities are like, and one way we can check that out is to look at the lapse rate. So mid-level lapse rates, this is a measure of the temperature difference between the 850 and the 700 millibar level. Actually, let me check this because they may be going 700 through 500 on that. I bet this is 700, 500. Nope, they're cutting this all the way from 850 through 500. Okay, so this is fairly deep, and we see some very steep lapse rates in this area right here, and this whole area of steeper lapse rates should continue spreading in over the next day or two, and that'll help contribute to the instability, especially as we get the better moisture working northward. Okay, there's the 250 millibar chart. Give me just a second here. Okay, gonna head off to the chat, see what we got going on here. We have Mark and Sue M. Robert Terrell mentioning 102 degrees there, and Matador. I'm trying to remember exactly where that is. I think that is along the Caprock. I'm thinking southwest of Childress. 107 degrees there with that downslope air. Justin Pulliam is here, and Victor Cabot, Thomas Copeland, Eddie W., Jumping Flash, Brian Harp, Roll H, Michael Burrell, Mike Wan has been missing a few live casts recently. Kevin enjoying the time-lapse there. Thomas Copeland says, more rain today in Virginia. Ground is very saturated. Ahmed is here, and Mike Estwick's saying, I wish Google would get notifications fixed. And I would definitely like to know what's going on there. I don't have a good handle on the YouTube notifications. I can probably show that to you here. This is as far as I know how this works. I go to this advanced settings page, and they give me this thing here called promote. Let me see if this is showing up here. Yeah, promote on my channel 12 hours before scheduled time. I tried setting that yesterday. So I don't know if that's the same thing as notifications, or if we're talking about that. This is all, I don't know, maybe one of these days I'll figure it out, but it's not very intuitive, to say the least. Okay, the 250 millibar jet way down south over Albuquerque, out to Oklahoma City, and down to the Mississippi area. Way off the south part of the map here. And the strongest flow that I'm seeing is probably in the base of that trough around Tallahassee, where I've got 110 knots. But I'm going to go ahead and go to SPC's chart. This takes us down to 300 millibars this morning, showing a bit of the ridging that we had building into the plains today. That probably helped delay some of the convection in Kansas a little bit earlier. I don't know, although they are on the other side of the ridge there, so they got that going for them. But we do lose the 250 millibar strong flow, so I suspect a lot of this is tied to the polar front jet. And we are seeing that taking root in the Arizona area up to Denver, right there. 70 knots coming into Flagstaff, and 80 in Southern California there. 700 millibar flow is, or the chart is starting to show a little bit of the capping building back in. So you can see the 10-degree isodrosotherm like that. One thing that's helping it build in is the advection coming off the plateau areas around the Four Corners area down to Mexico. So here's the 12 line. And then the 14 line that's going to be running in this area right here. So this kind of outlines the strongest area of the capping. Some of that will progress eastward over the nighttime hours, and we should see that kind of parked out around the Cap Rock area and western Oklahoma tomorrow. So I think that capping will be back once again. 850 millibar chart this morning showing a little bit of a strong low-level jet through the Central Plains, but a very dry one. You can see the better moisture way down in South Texas. So we got dew points at 5,000 feet here at Brownsville, 59. Then at Del Rio, we're looking at 34 degrees Fahrenheit. 37 at Lake Charles, and lots of 30s all the way up through Texas. So that's the reason we have this dry, low-level condition on the outside view right now. So let's see if we have a 0Z map and see if we've recovered a little bit. .26 at 0Z. Okay, we just got this in. This is an hour ago. So this is starting to show some of the moisture making it northward. So dew points have recovered up to 52 there at Oklahoma City. Still down at 48 in Fort Worth, and I can't read this value here at Del Rio at all, unfortunately. It does look like Corpus Christi. They've mixed out a lot of moisture. They've fallen off to about maybe 25 degrees Fahrenheit. But there's the main band of low-level moisture located right there along the Interstate 35 area. And we've got the low-level jet starting to pick up at this hour with 35 knots right there at Oklahoma City and 30 at Fort Worth. Here's the storms that we had in Nebraska and Colorado earlier. So, of course, this is going to flash while it buffers. But once that finishes, we should have a pretty cool time lapse. There we go. You can see the storms going up there. Okay, it's like a little bit of a satellite registration problem, but maybe I can take this a little bit of a... Let me stop this at the beginning of the loop. Okay, so here you can see the initial storms going up west of Burlington. So out here in this area between Lyman and Burlington, very nice towers going up there. But you'll notice the absence of the low cloud field, especially out in Kansas. So this is telling us that the storms are probably going to be a little bit on the high base side. So we roll that forward and we see the storm tops going up. Some pretty decent anvils right there. We've got some turkey towers along the Colorado-Kansas border further south. Okay, and once the satellite issues sort themselves out, I think we find our towers later during the afternoon around the Goodland. Yeah, the Goodland area right there. But you can see the edges of these anvils. They're a little bit fibrous. Don't have a whole lot of back building going on here. And we're not seeing the very tall overshooting tops in this area. So it's definitely good convection if you're out today in the Central Plains, but it's definitely not dropping tornadoes. And there it goes along the Interstate 70 area out towards the Wakini area where we find it right now. And just a quick checkup of that weather. Storms continuing to push eastward very quickly. So we're mostly looking from Hill City down to Wakini. Sails don't look particularly impressive at this time, and velocities, they're on the weak side. We've got a bit of a meso here, but we're only talking about 20 knots out, 26 in. That's going to be about 40 knots of rotation. Broad scale rotation right there. It's going to be kind of embedded in the storm right there. And tops on these things, pretty good, up in the 40 to 45,000 foot range. But anyway, that's what we got going on in that part of Kansas. Thickness and isobars, I think we're probably bringing a warm front northward. Just going by that, I can see we've got warm air advection out ahead of the front in Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas. So I would mark that as a warm front right there. And then the other section, going back to the Four Corners area, that's a definite cold front. And that's a progression of that system that we had starting out 2 days ago up here. And then yesterday we found it right in this area, and now we see it's moved another few hundred miles to the south, gradually making its way into the Central Plains and probably towards the Southern Plains here very shortly. And then superimposed on this, we do have the dry line. And that's going to be like that right there, and then you see the start of the pressure gradient coming into the Texas coast area here, and that's giving us our moisture feed right up there to that front right there along Interstate 35 in Oklahoma. But the better convection is back in the upslope air up here. So I think that's mostly what we're dealing with today is upslope convection. Okay, let's see here. Let's go to the dynamics chart real quick. There's the current conditions. I see a little bit of clumping together of the height lines in this area right here. So that's probably supporting a little bit of a jet axis in this area here. from Arizona to Kansas, and I think we did see that on the plots earlier. Okay, and we are bringing in a few waves with that, helping to destabilize things a bit. And we've got troughing, height falls further out west, so we should see a continued deterioration of the pattern overnight into tomorrow. So you see that right there. This is tomorrow morning. Couple waves moving through. Here comes another one. So by afternoon into evening, looks like maybe a couple short waves right there. So we're mostly working on the area along Interstate 40, just north of there. Maybe as far south as Lubbock and Altus. And then when we go further south of that down to the Red River, DFW, Midland, you can see that we are under weaker flow. Well, we've got 50 knots right here, but less of the wave action. We're on the other side of the jet, and we've got mostly downward synoptic scale motion in that area, helping to reinforce the cap. Okay, then moving forward into Sunday. Or let's see, where are we at now? Saturday. Looks like a continuation of the pattern for Saturday evening. We're continuing to work this area from Oklahoma City to Lubbock northward. So waves moving through that area right there. South of that line, not much going on. The flow is a little bit weaker. And we don't have much in the way of dynamics removing the cap in this area. In fact, it's probably building the cap a little bit. Then advancing ahead to Sunday. Looks like a big change there aloft. Look at this northwesterly flow opening up. Looks like some strong cold air advection on the Central Plains, and I think this is a 500 millibar front working southward like that. So probably down at the surface, even further south, we've probably got a cold front, maybe in the I-40 area, that will be factoring into the weather there. We'll take a look at the GFS and see what that shows. Okay, for the forecast, I think we're going to look at the NAM. If I can find it. Yeah, there we go. And you can see I've got the dew points and the winds up because the moisture is a big factor for the forecast tomorrow. So here's what we got overnight. Here's the 70s dew points all the way down in San Antonio, 60s dew points all the way up to Kansas, but keep in mind that this is relatively shallow. If I drop a sounding marker right there in northern Oklahoma, well, looks like we've built maybe about 100 millibars of moisture, so we're getting there. Very rapid recovery on the air mass. Here's the Pratt area. Yeah, I'd say we've probably built about 80 millibars of moisture, so it has actually recovered a little bit faster than I expected. You remember yesterday we were looking at the models, and they were slow to bring in the 850 and 925 millibar moisture. And it looks like we got a little bit of a different picture today. So anyway, dry line set up just to the west, and ahead of that moisture streaming in. So we should see the low-level jet roaring tonight. There it is setting up overnight, probably from the San Antonio area up to Oklahoma City. You can see the dry line receding out towards Midland and Childress. And then the midday situation, according to the NAM, it's going for a plunging front coming through Oklahoma City. That's the dominant pattern right there. There's the leading edge of that front. So I'll just draw this out for you guys real quick. There's the Canadian front pushing southward. And then ahead of that, we've got our dry line in I'm going for an orientation from about Wichita Falls down through about the Eastland area and down to Brady, Kerrville, and north of Del Rio. So this area here, too dry to support thunderstorm activity. This air mass definitely is capable of supporting severe weather. One problem that I'm seeing on this chart, though, is the very poor cyclogenesis near that triple point. Look at that low-level flow. It's kind of veered in this area right here. And that's not good because that's not going to help your storm motion vectors. Let me see if I can plot that up here real quick. I'm going to set a dot right there around Durant in the middle of that tropical air. And you can see that we've got that flow out of the southwest right there in the low levels, becoming westerly at higher levels. And you see the effect that has on the hodograph here. Yep, this corresponds to weak southwesterly winds, well, southwesterly at about 10 to 15, and then we pick up the stronger westerlies right there, and you can see how short the hodograph is through this entire area. So that's going to be very detrimental to the storm relative helicity wherever we have that southwesterly flow. I'll set another dot maybe around the Fort Worth area. A little bit more southerly here, but the same problem. We don't have good backing of the air. This is why we really need that cyclogenesis out to the west. We can't have these inverted troughs, these lows way up here, stealing the flow, bringing it northeast like that. That is a big problem as far as developing severe weather. So we've got southwesterly flow all up and down the front and the dry line, and I think that's one issue we're going to be contending with tomorrow. So let's see if anything changes as the day goes on. This is 1 p.m. This is 4 p.m. And then by 7 p.m., what we see here is a little bit of a drop-off in the speeds. Now, that can be a good factor right there, because that can stretch out your shear vectors, going from calm winds to stronger westerly flow aloft. So let's see what that shows. So we're going from light southerly flow in the low levels, and now you can see a little bit more of that turning here. Maybe even a little bit of a southeast component in this area right here. And even down in Dallas-Fort Worth, it looks like we've turned a little bit more southerly. Let's see what the photographs there look like. And again, this is 7 p.m. tomorrow night. It's not great. We would actually benefit from weaker winds there at Dallas-Fort Worth, because that would give us a little bit more of that curving. And let's see, with a right motion vector right here, the bunker's non-severe motion vector here, I think this is kind of a splitting storm configuration right there. So let me check out this bunker's motion down here at the bottom left. I know you guys can't see that very well. There we go. Bunkers right and left. I think we're going to be looking at 250 at 30. So yeah, that's going to place the non-severe rector. Yeah, guys, this is a splitting storm configuration here. But what we watch for during the day is last-minute changes, mesoscale details in the data. We can always have a strong wave coming in from the west, and you'll get a response to that in the low levels and get more of maybe some southeasterly winds out ahead of that wave. And that could definitely happen, and that's what we're going to have to watch out for tomorrow. But I think the best odds of that, based on everything I'm seeing here, knowing that the jet is kind of in this area, the stronger waves are up to the north, I think we're going to be looking at maybe along and north of the Red River for the best opportunities for that. So I would probably want to start out today, or this day right here, maybe around the Ardmore area, maybe on I-35. Now, of course, that could bring you out toward Tishomingo, and I really hate chasing that area. The roads are kind of crazy and windy, but it is better than nothing there. So let me see. There's one other thing I was going to show you guys, and that's the very steep lapse rates. And that's on the soundings way over here on the left. Look at that column there. Almost dry adiabatic all the way up. And it looks like we've eroded a lot of the capping here. So man, I think this is probably supporting a little bit of initiation there. And then we've got ourselves some pretty decent cape there. The model there is going for surface-based capes of 5,500. Mixed layer 5,100. Most unstable 5,600. That is as high as anything I've seen in a long time. So I would definitely be out chasing this thing. Park myself out there near the, I guess, maybe the Ardmore area. Maybe start out a little bit earlier in the day, a little bit further west. Maybe around Wichita Falls, up towards Duncan. Maybe drifting eastward during the day. Let me check out some of these soundings. Let me go to Dallas-Fort Worth. And I think as we go south, we're going to pick up a little bit more of the capping. Yeah, you see that right there? That's going to be harder to overcome. And I think to break that, we're going to need surface temperatures probably around 97. But if that does bust, probably looking at about 5,000 to 6,000 cape. So man, if we had even a small shortwave approaching this area from the west, I think we would be in some serious trouble along the Red River area tomorrow. Best chance for cap removal, like I said, a little bit further north of the Red River, and that may certainly happen here. And let's see what the model goes for as far as initiation tomorrow. Okay, going overnight here. Low-level jet time. And maybe I'll actually sleep tonight. I was up all night last night trying to catch up on some projects, and slept a little bit this afternoon. Okay, so here's 18Z. There's 21Z. and 0Z. So model is still not going for initiation, focusing mostly on this upslope stuff further out west. Then I'm going to go ahead and skip out to Saturday and see what that shows here real quick. It's like a kind of reinforcement of the cold front pushing southward. There's 21Z and there's 0Z. Looks like we get some convection just after, right around dark, around the Norman area out towards Tulsa. So this looks like maybe an I-35 chase area. Of course, this is going to depend on where the boundaries are tomorrow night. This is really too early to call, but I think we are looking at maybe central Oklahoma for a target there. Okay, let's see, what else should we look at? I'm really kind of confused whether we're going to get that deep initiation out along the Interstate 35 area near Ardmore, or if it's smarter to go with that northwest area. Let me run this back through. This is the NAM 3 kilometer. Moisture comes up overnight. Yeah, there is some upslope in this area, but the dew points are weaker. See, here's the 70s, here's the 60s, and then here's the 50s. Now, sometimes this is not a big deal, even with this weaker moisture. Sometimes you can have enough shear there to get a few tornadoes going. Let me take a look at the photographs right in this area here. We do see easterly flow, so we may have some elongation of the photographs in that area. Again, this is tomorrow evening. Steep lapse rates, yeah. Weaker moisture, definitely. LCLs are higher. And you can see the easterly flow here in the low levels becoming westerly aloft. But it looks like what we have here is kind of a straight line photograph. So I don't know if western Oklahoma is really going to be all that great of an area here. Let me try going to the Shamrock and Wellington area. Yep, straight line photograph, splitting storms, non-severe motion sitting right there on the wind plot. Higher LCLs. Well, the one thing that you have is the easterly flow there for sure. So I think probably what I would probably focus on this day is maybe this area here, southern Oklahoma, and have options westward in case things start looking a little bit better later. So in any case, to summarize, a very high Cape day coming up for this weekend. So this is the point where I'm going to go ahead and shift to the global models and close things out. And in doing so, we'll take a look at the chase prospects. So I'm going to bring up the dew point. So we'll let that come up here real quick. And while we're waiting, let me see who we got in chat here. I ran through a bunch of names already, but let me see. Let me see what I missed here. A lot of discussion here. Ryan says, "Good evening, Tim and chat." Juggalo says a rain-wrapped tornado is reported on that system. I think the one in Kansas there by Stephen Johns at 2334Z. Okay, so we managed to squeak a tornado possibly out of that Kansas stuff. Ryan dealing with delayed flights there. Carl Berghoff, very close to the Barron County, Wisconsin tornado back on May 16th this year. Ryan says New York LaGuardia and New York JFK delayed flights 4 to 5 hours. Wonder if Newark is doing any better. Strong storms in the Northeast. And Ryan says Friday and Saturday looks explosive to him. Some of our commenters talking about the El Reno storm. And Sarah Wood says, hey Sue, build a monolithic dome home. Those have been known to survive tornadoes. Yeah, definitely. Or I know there's some alternative building designs that are underground completely. That's the kind of thing we could have used in Oklahoma for sure. In fact, I did dig a tornado shelter. Maybe I'll show you the pictures of this sometime. I dug an underground tornado shelter and I tried to set it up like a room with concrete blocks. I poured the cores on the blocks and poured the floor and everything. It was about 7 or 8 feet below grade. It started getting flooded out with every rain event, so we were never able to use it. That clay soil right there, very bad drainage. And that's just the kind of thing you don't really expect sometimes when you're working with weird soils like what we had there in Oklahoma. Anyway, I'll show you the pictures sometime. Okay, let's head into the forecast here for tomorrow. This is more of a synoptic scale picture of what's happening tomorrow. So you can see that cold front from about Missouri down to Oklahoma City and then back up to Colorado. A little bit of a cold push behind that right there. And we can see the flow coming up from the Gulf right there. Most of it, unfortunately, heading up towards Missouri, Illinois, and Arkansas. And that's because we don't have very strong cyclogenesis in the Texas Panhandle and western Oklahoma. Then for Saturday, flow becomes a little bit more dynamic in the Central Plains. There's our front right there, stronger pressure gradients up north. We have a lot more elevated activity over the frontal boundary back in here. And then down to the south, it looks like our model, our GFS, wants to break out a thunderstorm right there along the dry line around the Wichita Falls area. So that kind of supports what we were looking at earlier. We were talking about maybe the I-35 corridor. So yeah, that looks pretty good there. Red River, west of I-35. Then going into Sunday, that front is going to push southward. And we see an inverted trough here over the Austin, Lufkin area. So best cyclogenesis way down here. That's going to bring most of the moisture westward into the San Antonio area there on Sunday. So maybe a chance of severe weather in that area. Large high pressure pushing southward, and that's going to kind of clear out a lot of the moisture. Let me switch over to that moisture chart here. Okay, so there's tomorrow night. Everything pretty much in place with what the NAM was showing, or NAM. Then for Saturday, here comes our next blast of air coming southward. There's the dry line. And I do like this here. You see the moisture showing a little bit of a push of higher dew points around Fort Worth up to the Wichita Falls area. And again, this is a global model, but this kind of supports the idea of maybe some severe storms around the Wichita Falls area, Seymour, maybe Vernon on Saturday. Okay, then for Sunday, this is where we see that big ridge push southward. Then going into Monday, Memorial Day, I think we're going to have some boundaries push all the way back in this area right here. And you can see that the deeper Gulf moisture is heading into the Big Bend area, like that right there. So probably a little bit of isentropic lift and upslope flow affecting the US 90 area from San Antonio out to the Big Bend area, and maybe along Interstate 10 in that area. And then the flow out further north is going to be a little bit indeterminate. Definitely not any strong storm relative inflow. Okay, going into Tuesday, return flow starting to become established across Texas. Looks like maybe a bit of a dry line starting to shape up in western Oklahoma. For Wednesday the 31st, now we have good cyclogenesis out in western Kansas, and that's going to help shape the dry line somewhere in that area right there. And we do have this other boundary that's pushing southward, so maybe a few targets along the Interstate 70 area from about Topeka all the way up to Goodland and maybe Scottsbluff. For Thursday the 1st, strong southerly flow coming up, dry line in place. And we could see some targets in that very same area, the Panhandle to western Kansas and up further north along that frontal boundary. There's that front right there. Skipping ahead to Friday. Very similar picture, and I think a lot of the patterns are being moderated by the outflow boundaries. Like this right here, I think that may be an outflow boundary. Probably had some convection there in Nebraska overnight, maybe pushed a boundary southward. And then south of that, we've got a pretty well-established dry line all the way from Dodge City down to Altus and down to Big Spring. So definitely some targets in western Oklahoma and southwestern Kansas right there. Again, this is going to be Friday the 2nd. And now we're starting to get pretty far out there. We do know that there's going to be plenty of moisture on the Great Plains. Looks like some stronger flows entered the plains right about now. This is around the 6th. We can see deeper systems right there in the Central Plains. So probably some chances for severe in Kansas and Oklahoma. Then we get some return moisture around the 9th and 10th. So basically what this is telling me is that we will see severe weather chances picking up. The moisture is going to be making it further and further northward, and it looks like even here by June 10th, all the way up into North Dakota and maybe Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So maybe things shifting northward a bit there towards the end of the period. Okay, I think that's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a good rest of the evening, and we'll try to take a... Oh yeah, I need to tell you guys, I'm probably going to be on the road tomorrow, so we're going to probably have a late show. But I will try to post that on the live feed description and let you know when I'll be back, and I'll post something on Twitter. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later tomorrow.